An introduction to exigent leadership. So what is exigent leadership? Exigent leadership is the general's leadership. It is a leadership for action-minded individuals made to feel obligated to both confront and resolve issues. Most prevalent among military, law enforcement, and government policing agencies, this form of leadership governs through the perceived necessity of action, pressing individuals based on their isolated capacity to ensure the viability of the mission, keep the system from breaking down, or see justice served. In essence, much of exigent leadership is about building up the expectations that people have of themselves. Aiding in this is the ability to use and build up foundational paradigms. Even as far back as early adolescence, children are exposed to a variety of different expectations, which are introduced at the onset as absolute. In most affluent areas, foundational paradigms remain fairly routine. They focus on expectations such as fair division, equal trade, seeing justice served, and taking responsibility for one's own action. When children then break from these ideas, when they steal, refuse to share, or lie, adults punish them. The compliant behavior is trained to be unquestionably necessary. This reinforces belief systems that individuals are trained to remain aligned with. Framing concepts in the context of these belief systems can then be very powerful. When individuals sense they are in misalignment with a foundational paradigm, they intuitively want to self-correct. In this way, exigent leaders strive to reinforce a sense of obligation, harnessing ideas like equity and fairness in order to drive action. And yet these are not the only messages that can be internalized. Elsewhere, children grow out of harder foundations. They learn expectations such as never backing down, fighting for what's theirs, and taking respect. In all instances, action is positioned as unquestionably necessary. It is this driving expectation that remains at the heart of exigent leadership. Honing these expectations, refining them, and repurposing them for use is the measure by which the exigent leader garners influence. To understand exigent leadership completely, there are a number of subjects worthwhile for discussion. With limited time, the focus of this introduction will explore just a few of the more common Western foundational paradigms that can be harnessed to motivate action. Positioning work and challenges within this framework will help draw upon the exigent influence and drive individuals to action. Harnessing foundational paradigms. Core to being an exigent leader is the capacity to engage with a subordinate sense of necessity. It is a sense of obligation and the demanding nature of the situation that calls for the individual to take action. So an exigent leader must be prepared to make individuals feel obligated to take that action. To this end, an exigent leader must be able to both engage and reinforce the foundational paradigms that make individuals feel accountable. What follows is an abbreviated list of some common Western foundational paradigms. This is by no means an extensive list, rather it is focused primarily on self-respect, fairness, and necessity. Universal approach paradigm. The universal approach paradigm is born out of the notion of seeing justice served. It says that similar situations demand similar recourse. If a subordinate seeks exception, an exigent leader would press for an explanation as to why no one else required exception. Within an organization, this paradigm would be applied to anyone taking liberties with time management, or in some other way underperforming. It applies motivation off the idea that a leader must be fair and apply the same standards universally. After all, how can he be fair if he is making special exceptions for special individuals? Equal with advantage is inferior paradigm. This paradigm is born from refining the notion of what equal trade of services is. It establishes that having been provided some advantage over the group, it is no longer sufficient for an individual to simply perform at an equal level with the group. Since that person has an advantage, he must now exceed the performance of the other members. Within organizations, this is particularly relevant to more senior and experienced members. Rather than have one single explanation of what an average performer is, a leader is inclined to subdivide groups into categories. Obviously, full-time employees should outperform seasonal hires. That is why these employees are retained at the end of the season. Their performance is set to a higher standard. The same is true of tiered associate levels. A Tier 3 service tech is supposed to be more skilled than a Tier 1 service tech, and to see him underperform by comparison begs the question, who should really be the Tier 3 service tech within that group? Precondition Paradigm. The precondition paradigm is born out of the idea of taking responsibility for one's own choices. It says that it would be unfair to alter course because of something agreed upon in advance. This is especially so for military organizations that sell themselves as elite, as it is often understood that part of admission to the organization will be to overcome obstacles, endure strain, and face difficulty. How then can these individuals now complain about those issues when they knew these challenges would face them when they sought admission into the armed forces? Similarly, within conventional organizations, organizations, a high performer might step forward and request more work and more hours to get paid more. Then, 3 weeks down the line, when he's falling behind because he's not committing the hours for the excess of work, he's not doing more than the others, but rather he's doing less than the work he committed to. Lesser strain paradigm. Born from the notion of fair division of labor, the lesser strain paradigm is used abundantly and can be seen within many fields. It is the leader who shows up early and leaves late. By this implicit action, it establishes that when a leader is tolerating the same or greater strain, all are expected to tolerate their lesser strain as a measure of fair division. After all, how can they complain if the leader isn't complaining? In this way, an exigent leader can drive up the notion of what an individual's fair share is. Owner-creator paradigm. The owner-creator paradigm is born from the idea of taking responsibility for those things under your control. In the owner-creator paradigm, the individual being motivated is obligated to ensure the success of his own idea or the success of a process he controls. In this way, it is only fair and right that he must invest everything necessary to ensure an idea or process works, since it is his idea or process to control. Therefore, the size of snags and challenges is irrelevant, as the individual is completely responsible regardless of the size. Society's perception of exigent leadership. Responsibility, obligation, duty, and necessity. These words typify the exigent influence and resonate within certain spheres of influence, but they are absent elsewhere. In general, society acknowledges the exigent influence within domains such as the military, policing forces, and first responders. However, it interprets these positions as unique, requiring unique personalities to perform, specific individuals who are willing to put duty first. This is not entirely incorrect. Often those who gravitate toward the exigent influence are drawn to positions that call for duty and obligation. Consequently, it should not be surprising that a great wealth of these individuals find themselves working for the government, and within that sphere of influence, the exigent leadership resonates with great effect. What is incorrect is to think that the exigent influence is limited to these few domains. Elsewhere within society, individuals can still be influenced by exigent leadership, but what should be kept in mind is that the exigent influence will not resonate with everyone. The second misconception is held by those who are most easily plied by the exigent influence. Having been raised with strong foundations in equity and fairness, these individuals are inclined to think that all people will similarly submit to such notions, and that is simply not the case. When exerting the exigent influence, leaders need to be prepared to subsidize their leadership with other influences. Most often these individuals will be focused on their own self-interest, so leaders need to be prepared to leverage primal or one of the other influences if they intend to motivate the entire group. I'm Thomas Campbell, and this has been a short excerpt from the 6 Fundamental Forms of Leadership. If you enjoyed it, please remember to click the like button. That goes a long way to help support and promote the channel. Also, if you've liked learning about leadership and want to stay updated as I continue to release advanced content, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Lastly, if you want to find the complete work, head over to kingscrownsandempires.com or search for the 6 Fundamental Forms of Leadership on Amazon to find both digital and hardback copies. Now I want to turn it over to you. What foundational paradigms were you taught as a child? How do you see them driving the exigent influence in the world around you? Share your thoughts and leave a comment letting me know.